Hello everybody, welcome back. I thought today we could do a unboxing of this Himi Miya Gouache. I know I'm late to the party. I know this has been around for a while, but this is my first opportunity to get to open it up and play with it. So let's check out what we're going to paint once we've opened up the box. We're going to paint this turtle, but first let's open up the little pots, do some swatching, and see what comes in this kit. The first thing I'm noticing are those clips to hold the cover on. They're nice and sturdy. They don't feel like they're going to break. It also came with this little plastic water pouch. I'm not going to use it. It doesn't look very sturdy. It's kind of cool that it just folds flat and goes right into the set, but I cannot imagine being able to swish around my brushes very well and get them clean. So we're just going to put that off to the side and maybe we'll use it for storage or something. Looks like it comes with like a little card with how to contact the company. We don't really need that. And this is what I'm really excited about with this particular set. It's the palettes. I know for a while they weren't coming with palettes, and that's actually one of the reasons why I hadn't purchased this set before. The palette fits right into the cover, which is nice. And then we also have some brushes. These definitely feel like decent brushes. They have nice wood handles. Once I cut it open and was able to feel the bristles, they're nice and soft, but not so soft that I'm not going to be able to push around gouache and thick layers of gouache. I think one thing I don't like about it is that the brushes are white, and I know that means they're going to stain. The first time I dip them into the paint, they're not going to come clean again, but that's fine. They're definitely a higher quality brush than what you normally get that comes with, various lower end sets of paint. Okay, so I pulled one of the little tubs out just to look at it. A disappointing thing is they aren't labeled with English names of colors. I'm assuming that the characters on there are the Chinese names for the different colors of paint. And I know you can buy refills of this paint, but when I've gone onto the different websites and checked them out, they're all calling the paints different colors. So I can't imagine it's going to be easy to actually find the correct paint to refill the tubs because there's just no universal names for these paints. So the reason why I pulled all the little tubs of jelly gouache out of the palette before I started opening them, I wanted to kind of plan ahead and get them in some sort of like color wheel type of order. I knew once I started opening them, they get quite messy. I've seen that from other videos. So I wanted to make sure I knew where I wanted to put each little tub. I feel like this is a very well-balanced set of 24 colors. I like that there are warm and cools of each of the colors. So you have your warm and cool reds, your warm and cool yellows, your warm and cool blues. It seems to be a good mixing palette. And then it also has a lot of convenience colors, like some earth tones and some greens. So I'm pretty happy with the color selection. The two dark pots I put off to the side because I knew one was black. I couldn't tell if the other one was a Payne's gray or if it was a really, really dark blue. I did end up figuring it out later when I was actually opening the pots. I realized that one of them is a dark blue, so I had to go back and rearrange these a little bit. I think the only thing I would have changed was I would have swapped out that really, really pale blue for an extra white. I know I'll probably be going through quite a bit of white, and I don't think that light blue is super necessary. Okay, so I'm going to grab the first little pot, and it is a nice, pretty pale pink. And those other YouTube videos I've watched aren't lying. These covers are on really tight, and they really are quite messy when you open them up. Tap the little pot on the table, hoping that the paint would settle deeper into the pot. I know that there's a good chance once I put the palette back on top of the paints and put the cover on, the paints are going to get all over the palette. So I was hoping that the paint would settle, but it's just so thick that it doesn't. It just has its mind of its own. It's almost like a meringue. I did notice there had been a little separation of binder and paint. So there's kind of like an oily sheen over all of these tubs. I chose not to stir it into the paint. I figured that it's actually going to prevent the paint from drying out if I just kind of leave it on top. And when I go in with my brush to grab paint, I can kind of dig deep enough to avoid the binder. And here they are. They're absolutely gorgeous. So I grabbed my swatch sketchbook and I drew some black lines on my paper because I wanted to swatch the paint over black lines to see how opaque each of the colors are. I found that the lighter colors are quite opaque and the darker colors are a little bit more translucent. This is really normal for gouache. I've noticed that with higher end brands as well. I think it has to do with the fillers and the pigments that are used for lighter color paints. Whatever it is, I don't know if it's titanium. I don't know what they use to make the paints lighter, especially these because there's no pigment information at all. But whatever it is, the light colors are nice and opaque. You can see that second swatch that I did, that rose color. It's quite translucent. So if I wanted it to be a little bit more opaque, I'd probably mix it with the light pink or white. Now I knew my brushes were going to get stained because the bristles are white. I was a little surprised at how quickly and how intensely they got dyed. They're already, at this point, for me just doing a few swatches, completely discolored. It makes me wonder if these paints may be more dye-based as opposed to pigment-based, but that is purely speculation. I have no idea. And again, it's a little bit unfortunate that there isn't any information about these paints at all in the packaging. I was absolutely shocked as I was doing these swatches at how pigmented these paints are. I know these are not considered high-end paints. They're, closer to student grade or even maybe kid-friendly paints. But these are heavily pigmented, very good quality paints. And I hate to refer to them as lesser quality paints without, again, knowing what is in them. Now, the real test for me was going to be putting them in action. I wanted to try to paint more realistically. That's normally what I do. So I didn't want to paint maybe in a more cartoony or a more stylized way just because I was using the Himi gouache paints. I wanted to treat them like I would any other quality paints, any high-end paints. I wanted to see if they could perform like a professional level paint. And again, I was super impressed with these. I was able to get every technique that I wanted to use. I was able to do that with these paints. I was able to use them like a watercolor and let them flow and blend and use them more transparently. And I was able to apply it with less water and get a thicker, more opaque look that you normally expect with gouache. Now, when you look at the palette of paints, they are insanely bright. They're very unnatural colors. It's not stuff you would normally see in nature. So I was a little bit nervous. I knew I was going to have to mix the colors to tone them down to get more earth tones and to get more natural colors. I wasn't sure if that would mean that I'd end up with muddy colors. Sometimes that happens with lower quality paints. Once you start mixing colors, they turn muddy as opposed to turning more toned down. It would have been nice to have a little bit of a bigger brush come with this set. I was working fairly small. This painting is, I think, 6x9, so I'm not covering large areas. If I did want to do a larger painting with this gouache, I would have to use a brush from another set, or just, another brush that I have, because I was really struggling to cover large areas and do nice even washes in some spots. It took a little bit longer than it needed to. I didn't have many options for really dark colors. It did come with black. It came with a dark Prussian blue and I would say maybe a burnt umber, which was pretty dark. But that's it. So once those colors are gone and I've used them up, there aren't going to be any options for me to get really dark values. So I would have liked to see the purple be a lot darker and maybe one of the greens be a lot darker. It would have given, I think, a little bit more versatility out of this palette, but in the grand scheme of things, not that big of a deal. Now, I didn't notice any issues layering paint on this turtle, especially in his fin. I know some people said that this particular gouache lifts really easily and it's a little difficult to layer. Again, I didn't have that issue. I don't know if it's because I let the paint completely dry before I decided to put the next layer on. So maybe that's what helped. But I think also because I'm pretty used to using watercolor, and there is a certain level of liftability that watercolor has as well. I've learned to have a lighter touch as I layer the paints. You don't want to scrub in your layers because then you are going to mix what's underneath in with what you're applying. It's, I guess, just a little bit of practice and you'll be able to do tons of layers. Even right here, as I was applying some shadow onto the turtle's neck, it didn't affect the layer of yellow ochre that was underneath it all. I should probably go over the colors that I used in the turtle. So for that base layer of yellow, I mixed a little bit of the lemon yellow with the yellow ochre. And then to get the nice dark gray color, I used the Prussian blue and I mixed that with a little bit of the burnt umber. And then for the kind of reddish spots on his fins and on the top of his head, that was, I would say, maybe the burnt sienna type color. And the background watercolor was the turquoisey blue mixed with a little bit of the green, like the standard green. Overall, I'm giving this paint 4 out of 5 stars. It's inexpensive for the amount of paint you get. The colors are super vibrant and super pigmented. The only downside is you have no idea what pigments are being used and they're not labeled in any way for me to be able to reference them properly. And because I don't know what pigments are being used, I have no idea what the light fastness is. There is no way I could use this for professional work. But I could definitely paint something with it, take a photo of it, and use it for reproduction purposes. So here is my favorite part of a painting, peeling off the tape. I find it so satisfying, and I like that it gives nice clean edges. It makes it look a little bit more finished. So here is my cute little turtle. I'm pretty happy with it. I like how this paint worked. My next gouache painting that I'm going to do for you is going to be with the Lucas gouache. That's going to be my next review, and it's a grade up from this paint. And then after that, I'm going to try the Holbein gouache. So I'm very curious to see how they all compare to one another, and I'm curious to see if the expense of the Holbein is going to be worth the difference compared to this paint. So thanks for sticking around and watching my video. I hope you enjoyed this unboxing and review and quick little demonstration. Leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think. I love hearing from you. I hope to see you soon. Bye.